Gorinto. This is an abstract game with a modern sensibility. It just has the look of, classic, immortal games from back in the day. At the same time, it has variable victory conditions, variable scoring things from game to game. And so right there you have the connection between the modern and the old. There are a couple of things in the development of the game that left me a little bit underwhelmed, as you will see. But one thing that the game does is it sure looks good on the table. It has quite a presence thanks to these stacks of plastic tiles with different colors and with different characters, and that they click together very nicely. Which they shouldn't. That's one of the elements of production that already I find problematic. During the game, you set up the game by placing 4 tiles in a stack in the middle of the board, and then you have 3 stacks of 3, and then stacks of 2, and then here around you have 1 tile each. And this is the standard setup. There are other ways in which you can set the board. Then you're gonna have a bag where you place the remaining tiles, and this is where you will draw the tiles from. These tiles, you will move in them, you will collect them, you want them to be one on top of the other, that's how the game works, but you don't want to have to pull them apart, and there's something almost supernatural, I swear. They stick together even in the bag, they just stick together. I'm not kidding you. Before I filmed this video, before I started filming, I made sure that all of the tiles in the bag were separated. Not 2 were stacked together. I put them in there, and then I simply moved it around a couple of times as I was setting up the game. They form stacks in the bag by themselves. It's almost creepy. Almost supernatural. It's also a bit annoying because, if I need to draw a tile and I get this one, then I need to get the whole thing out, and we need to stipulate that when I get a stack, it will be the one on top, and I'll start pulling from the top. And other times, again, I need to take a tile here, and part of the stack comes off. Just a bit surprising that they designed that with such good, clipping powers together. That's a bit annoying. As I said, there's gonna be variable victory conditions, very modern, very 21st century. At the beginning of each game, you will draw 2 cards. These cards simply represent the 5 types of tiles that you find on the board. And each tile of that kind that you collect will be worth 2 victory points at the end of the game, which is huge. And sometimes you feel like, well, just go for them. But there are also other victory conditions, and from this deck of cards here, you'll draw 2, and those victory conditions will apply. Will apply at the end of each round. You play 4 rounds, and so at the end of each round, you will score the things that are indicated there. For example, here in this game, we're gonna score each stack with an odd number of tiles that we own, and then you will score your tallest stack and also any stack tied with it. Then also you score the shortest stack and also any stack tied with it. So those are 2 examples of victory conditions, of scoring conditions that will score you points. So it's really important, really fun. In different games you will have different conditions. Also, these 2 are 2 that I understand. There are just some in here that the phrasing is very ambiguous. I simply don't know. I don't understand what those mean. There is no player aid. There is no section of the rulebook that explains in detail what those are. Maybe something was lost in translation. But basically, when that happens, I simply draw until I find victory conditions that I understand. I would say maybe 70% are good. The other ones, I just don't know. I kind of get a sense, but if I'm not sure, I can't play. Then each player will have a personal shrine here where they will place the tiles that they collect. I collect a tile of this kind, it goes here. I collect that tile, it goes there. And if I later collect other tiles of that kind, they also go there, piling them up. So the general idea is that you will collect tiles. And you will use these 10 tiles that are around the board, you bring them to the board and you use them to collect. Now, generally speaking, the idea is that I do that, I perform my move, so there are only 9 available, then somebody performs their move, and so on and so forth. And you continue like this until there's a number of tiles left here, which is fewer than the number of players. That means that if you're playing with 4 players, each player only gets 2 turns, which is not really much in the entire economy of the game. Now, there's an interesting thing. With 2 players, we often like, oh, the 2-player variant. I think the 2-player variant is the best variant here because it's the one that allows you an extra move. Meaning, after you take your move, you will remove one of the remaining tiles here. There is a way of doing it. The rulebook says basically you draw a tile and that randomly tells you which one should be removed. If that is removed, you draw another tile and so on until you find a tile that you can remove. So after you take a move, you need to select randomly another one to be removed, which is just boring. It just sounds pretty annoying and I've never done it. However, they also say, or after you take a tile, you remove another tile. And right there, that's the only variant of the game that adds a whole other layer of decision, which is super important to me. It almost makes me, I mean, honestly, I don't want to play without the layer of decision because I'm collecting a tile. I see what my opponent may want to get, and so I'm going to remove that. Oh, because that will allow them to do this or that. So I highly recommend right there the 2-player version with the option of removing a tile after you collect a tile because it's almost twice the game. It's almost twice the game. Now, as for collecting tiles, again, you take turns basically selecting one of these tiles that are on the edges and transporting it any distance over the corresponding row or column. And then where you stop it indicates where you will be taking tiles from. The type of tile that you used indicates the type of capture that tile does. If, for example, I am moving a purple tile, see, I just drew a tile from the bag and 2 came. For example, if I move a purple tile, then I can take tiles from the stacks that are adjacent diagonally. So those are the 4 possible stacks that I can take from. Important, you can never under any circumstance bring home the tile that you moved. You use that one to collect other tiles. If the tile that I moved is a white one like that, then after I stop, suppose I just stop there, I can take tiles that are adjacent orthogonal instead of diagonally. If I moved an orange tile, as indicated there, then I can take from the 4 that are, well, 2 on one side and 2 on the other side vertically, in the same direction as indicated on the diagram. There's a tile here, there's a type of tile. After I stop, booyah, I could collect any and all of those. Any and all, well, it depends how many you collect, depends on how many you already have. That represents your understanding of the element. So your understanding of the element at the beginning of the game is 1 for each element. So 1 of the void, 1 of the wind, 1 of fire, 1 of water, and 1 of earth. It kind of sounds like an ABBA song. But wasn't like a group, earth, wind, and fire, and void? I don't know, I'm too young for that. Your understanding improves as you collect stuff. So your understanding of an element will be a base number 1 plus 1 for each tile that you have there. So right now, if I was to capture tiles using an earth tile, I could capture 2, 1 plus 1. Well, earth is different because once you land on a stack, it's annoying. When you land on a stack, you can take any tile in the stack, but not the top, and you should not upset the order of the other ones. So maybe take that one or that one, but I need to make sure that I don't upset the order of the other ones. Booyah. And so right now, if I was using this one here, the fire, I go here, my understanding is of 2, 1 base plus 1, and so I can take any 2 from these ones here. And so there's definitely an engine building element here, as your first captures in the first round feel pretty meh, but from round 2 you can start collecting a lot of good stuff. And of course, collecting things for the sake of it, yes, it's usually good. But not necessarily depending on the scoring conditions, the victory conditions that you have there. It just does different things. So the value is there. But you're definitely going to have, you're going to try to still score some good, solid points from the beginning of the game while building an engine. And you'll try to really score the big points and make your engine work and score a lot in the last round or two. And that's possible. I have seen the player that was behind the entire game, then coming back on top and winning at the end of the game, just for some really massive collections of tiles and matching the scoring conditions in the last round. So what we have here is a classic looking game that I find pleasant. It has a couple of minuses here and there, again with ambiguities in the scoring conditions, with these tiles that to me they look pretty good. I like the general pattern that they create, the presence on the table. They just it's just weird that they come up like this when you try to draw one from the bag. As for gameplay itself, it feels very tactical, not particularly strategic, because just too many things change from time to time. And again, I like to play with two players. I play with my daughter Amelia, and also played it by myself, two player solo. Oh, there's also a solitaire version that I haven't played. These days, I'm just not interested in playing against bots. I just play against myself. That's enough. That's the kind of enemy I like to face these days. I was very deep and philosophical. I guess all the Zen thing here is really working. So I played it with a human opponent, and I played it with myself as a human opponent, two players solo. And to me, it works, and I like it that way. Again, I like it precisely because you have twice the decisions, what to do now and what to remove from later, which can be, of course, Amelia wants to do that stuff, so I'm gonna remove it. But maybe actually I also like that still available, so maybe I'll leave it there or remove something else, hoping that she doesn't get it. So that whole level of decision to me elevates the game. I don't think I'd be interested in playing the game in other versions. So to me that works as a two-player game with the option of the extra strategy, of that extra decision. Then you have a lot of thinking to be doing, but not too much, because it remains mainly a tactical game. I can't base my strategy around this thing being around next round, or this thing still being there, or this thing being there, because it may be taken from you, it may be covered by you. So many things can happen. So there is thinking going on, but it still feels pretty much going with the flow, because you look at the board and you see what's available then. So if you like, which is unusual when you think that it is engine building. So this is a game that still incentivizes long-term planning. But again, you're a little bit in the hands of the gods there, because you're building an engine, and then you still hope that the board will look such that your engine will do something. When you start collecting massive amounts of points late in round 3, it still usually works, but you never know. So there's a random element, and there's a somewhat unusual combination between engine building and very tactical, very situational, ever-changing board. If you like those things, I didn't know that I would, but I enjoy them when I play this game. Again, two players is, to me, the way to go. So Gorinto, and again, I don't know that I would ever want to play with 4 players, because on one hand, it's very tactical. On the other hand, I see how and why people may get stuck with analysis paralysis. I would not want to play with 4 players and just be stuck with like just 2 actions and that's it for the round. A low player count, I would recommend it for somebody who likes abstracts and likes the idea of planning and building engines, but also you gotta be there in the moment. It's about the moment rather than the planning. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag here, both in terms of design and in terms of production. I think it can have an audience. I think there are people that will enjoy it. Again, I personally enjoyed it, mind you, but I don't think it's gonna be a universal crowd pleaser. And this is my assessment for Gorinto.